Identity theft is a serious crime in our nation. It is punishable by a prison sentence of up to 5 years and a fine of up to $10,000. Identity theft is the fraudulent acquisition and use of someone's private identifying information. Most identity theft cases are committed out of an act of desperation. Because if it were not for the person's identity, they would not otherwise be able to obtain that which it is they stole the identity for. The opportunity for identity theft is oftentimes, not all of the time, but oftentimes caused by a lack of security or carelessness on the part of the victim. This is exactly what we see here in our scripture text on today as we look at this story about Esau and Jacob. Esau and Jacob were probably the second medical phenomenon as it relates to childbirth, that being second to the birth of Isaac to a 90-year-old Sarah. This is the first mentioning of twins that we see in the Bible. I would say that it is safe to infer that they were not identical twins, because the description that is given to the one Esau is that he was red and hairy all over. So it is plausible to believe that they were probably fraternal. Thus he was given the name Esau, which is Hebrew for hairy. Now, this is a pretty important point because I would imagine that it would have been a whole lot easier to steal Esau's identity if they had been identical. But I believe that the distinction is made here so that we are clearly able to see that they were not. And so before we really even delve into the plot of this story, we see that there is this struggle that takes place in the womb before they are even born. In their mother's womb, there is this conflict that arises between the two brothers. And after Jacob is born, Jacob being the second child, it says that he grabs Esau's heel. Thus he was given the name Jacob, which means heel catcher or supplanter. One who wrongfully and illegally seizes and holds the place of another. So it would seem as if all along Jacob had this plan to take what rightfully belonged to Esau from the very beginning of their existence. And so we watch as the boys grow up, and Esau is the hunter, and Esau is killing animals, and he was strong and fierce and aggressive, and it says that he was a man of the field. And Jacob, on the other hand, would rather stay at home baking cookies. So Esau comes back from hunting one day, and he makes this urgent appeal to Jacob. And he says, "Give me something to eat because I am faint." Now this is the first careless act on Esau's behalf. Because you have to be careful what you tell people about yourself. He says on the end of this that he is faint, which would imply that he is extremely weak and extremely fatigued, which now highlights his vulnerability. And so you have to be careful what you tell things to people because everybody doesn't have your best interest at heart. Not everyone likes you that says that they like you. Not everyone loves you that says that they love you. Not everyone is your friend that claims to be your friend. You have to be selective and discerning who you share your heart with. Amen. So Jacob capitalizes on that, and he basically says, well, if you want it that bad, then sell me your birthright. Now, the birthright was a major, major thing in that day. It was something sacred, and it identified you as the firstborn son. Your inheritance was wrapped up in the birthright. It afforded you the title to the physical assets of the family. If you possessed the birthright, the functions of the priesthood in the family now rested on you. A double portion of paternal property was now allotted. Later on, long after the establishment of the Mosaic Law. Spiritual heritage was received through the birthright, the very covenant promise that had been made to their grandfather Abraham would now be made available to the one who possessed the birthright. And here it is, Jacob saying, sell me your birthright, or give me your identity. And Esau's reply is, I am about to die. What profit or what good is this birthright going to do me? Somebody say carelessness. Lack of security. So Jacob had to have known the importance of this birthright, because this was all that he asked for. He could have said, well, if I give you the food, all you have to do is wash the pot that I made it in. Or if I give you this food, then you have to take my turn looking over the flock for a week. But no, that wasn't what he asked for. He said, give me your birthright. Jacob went for the gusto. He went for the jackpot. And Esau said, sold to the highest bidder. And so essentially what this young boy sold his birthright for was a pot of food. It was a pot of stew, so that he could satisfy this temporary hunger, this thing that was this natural feeling that keeps coming back again and again, something that you have to continue to satisfy. And this is just an ancient story of the present reality of what goes on in our lives today. We are casual and nonchalant about the things of God. We kind of live life like whatever. And we settle for things that give us a temporary satisfaction or a quick feel-good moment. And we are not even aware that when we indulge in such acts and take on these worldly characteristics, that essentially what we are doing is trading our identity for something that is temporal, something that is worth so much, such a high price, for something that is meaningless and will only last for a while. Jacob had a true understanding of how important this birthright was. And Esau either didn't have the same understanding or just flat out didn't care. Jacob had him to swear over to him his birthright. And without hesitation, Esau consented. It said that he ate and he drank and he went on his way, and that Esau despised his birthright. He despised it, meaning he disregarded it. It was something that he looked down on. I looked up another synonym that said that he hated it. He hated his birthright in the moment of seeking for that temporary, short-term satisfaction. I began to think to myself, well, why didn't he just take it back? He could have said psych, or he could have crossed his fingers behind his back when he made the deal, or he could have just acted like it never happened, because there was only just the two of them there. But the Bible says that Jacob made him swear it to him. Now, things were a little different in that day. They had something called oaths. And so an oath was a verbal binding agreement. Their word was their bond. Their word was something like what a contractual agreement is to us today. And so it was sworn before God. And so his adversary now convinces him to hand over the most important thing in his life, his identity, his birthright. Look, we all have birthrights on today. There are some things that God has promised to us that we are able to receive now the day that we become born again. We have this inheritance now. We are heirs and joint heirs with Christ. We have this new identity. The Bible says that if any man be in Christ, then he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new. So there's this newness now that we take on in Christ, and we now have these rights that are attached to it.